Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight for Ask the Expert. I'm Catherine, and I'm the Virtual Program Coordinator for the National Aphasia Association. The National Aphasia Association is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to promote public awareness and understanding of aphasia, to promote research that aims to improve the lives of people with aphasia, and to provide support to all persons with aphasia and their care partners. Our expert this month is Erin Vaughn, also known as the Single-Handed Chef, who I'll be introducing in just a moment. Please write your questions about tonight's topic in the Q&A section in the Zoom toolbar. And please feel free to say hello or add a comment in the chat. As always, our expert will answer as many of your questions about tonight's topic as possible. We may not get to all of the questions during tonight's webinar, so if you think of other questions or we don't get to your question, please feel free to email us at answers@aphasia.org. And now it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's expert. Erin Vaughn is more commonly known as the Single-Handed Chef. In 2021, his life changed when he had a brain abscess just days before his 47th birthday. He lost the use of his right hand and has weakness on the right side of his body. Being a chef and lover of food, Erin wanted to regain his cooking skills. He started cooking with one hand as the Single-Handed Chef, learning and developing adaptive strategies. Erin tries to keep things simple and easy for everyone, and you all are in for a treat tonight. We're going to get to watch him do some cooking for us, and you can watch lots more videos on his YouTube channel at The Single-Handed Chef. So Erin, I'll pass it over to you. Take it away, Single-Handed Chef.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this event. Like she said, I had a brain abscess 3 years ago, and I wanted to get back to what I do in a way. I didn't realize at the time what I couldn't do. I didn't know I was going to be affected for this long. And then once I realized where I was at, I tried to figure out what I could do. And so I just started cooking in the kitchen. And the first thing, when I was at Wake Med, they gave me some tools. So I bought a cutting board, and it has suction cups, nails, and there's supposed to be two little backdrops there, but for me, I don't use those. But the suction cup really helps out a lot because it it won't move, and that's the biggest thing, because when you have use of two hands, you can use a lot of things to steady yourself. This is one of those things that's helped me a lot. And you'll see, I was making mashed potatoes. I was just taking little baby Yukons, pouring them in a pot, boil them. And then someone I cooked for, they said, "Can you do it without the skin?" And I was like, "I don't know." And so I had to figure out how to do it. That's why I'm doing mashed potatoes. B, it's also that time of year getting into Thanksgiving. Everyone needs to know how to make mashed potatoes. Um, Another thing I use is I had this for a can opener, and this has been really cool to me because all you do is hook it on the side and just ratchet around, and it just opens it up easily, and you're able to have whatever you want, canned soup, can whatever. Really enjoy that. That was one of my favorite things I had. Another thing that worked for me, because I was right-handed, all of a sudden now I'm left-handed. If you're a left-hander, you know scissors are your enemy because you just can't use them. So I had a friend that gave me a list online of a bunch of left-handed equipment, and the other ones I didn't mind too much, but the scissors, I was like, yes, this will help out a lot. And so I bought these, and they're like 30 bucks, but like it's way worth it. So I enjoyed that. Another thing I like doing is making empanadas and dumplings. So you could probably do this. I could do it without before, but now I need something to kind of fold it over. And so this has kind of help me do that. Another thing that's been very helpful is electric pepper grinder. So all you do is turn it over, it comes on, grinds it out. Because salt, you don't need to grind the salt, but pepper, you need fresh black pepper. Other pepper, regular pepper. I mean, if that's all you have, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're gonna cook really good food, having a good pepper grinder always helps. So, so first, what we're gonna do? Oh yeah. So you go to open up a jar. So I can't really show you this one, but there's this thing. It's like $10 on Amazon, and it connects right here, and you just slide in whatever you're doing and turn it, and it opens jars, and it can go on down to a hot sauce bottle. It's like a V. It's really cool. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can do here. Let's do this. So if you can see it, it's a very cool thing. It comes with all the equipment. Put it right under your countertop, and you are good to go. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to make mashed potatoes. And so I got my cutting board. It's not going to move. And then I take it and I put my potato on there, and then I just peel. And I mean, obviously it takes a little bit longer, but now you can have mashed potatoes without skin. And I don't mind either way. I worked in Irish bar many years, and so we did a lot of potatoes. We just did Yukons, and we did it with the skin. And when you're using Yukons, it's a little bit more forgiving. Idaho, you have to watch it. If you overcook it, it's watery. If you undercook it, everyone's had lumpy mashed potatoes, and that's not good. So you want to make sure you cook it properly. And you make a little bit of a mess because you only have the one hand. But there you go. You have a full potato ready to go for mashed potatoes. Let me throw this away really quickly.
Karen,
And
can you
then,
lift up that cutting board and show us what it looks like?
so it's got suction cups on the bottom. I don't know if you can see the two nails. There's all the different ones. I got this on Amazon for about $40. There's a bunch of different ones. There are two little things that I don't know where they are. Maybe they're over here. I don't use them. They fall out, and there they are. And they go like this. And there's one more. And that's to help catch things. But for me, it gets in the way. And I just don't like to use it personally. But you might like it. Everyone's different when it comes to cooking. As far as cutting it, you can leave it on here and do that. Cut it in half. I like to go transfer back and forth to a wooden cutting board because it's heavier and bigger for me to cut. Because otherwise, this isn't big enough for me. And then you just cut it in nice chunks, and you put that in water with salt, and you boil it. And the magic of TV, I already have a pot ready to go. So I'll come over here and I'll strain it. There we go. We'll get the water out. So there you have the nicely cooked potatoes. I go in with my butter. And if you have a KitchenAid, it works really good. If you don't, You can use a potato masher. Those are just as good. Just make sure you have a towel down, because now that you only have the use of one hand, it's a lot harder to hold things in place. So make sure you have like a towel to kind of keep it going with a little white pepper, kind of keep it from moving. Same thing with if you have a cutting board and you don't have suction cups, put a wet towel underneath, a paper towel just with a little bit of water, and they'll hold it in place, and so nothing moves. So going with the white pepper, we'll lock it up. And then we'll just run that for a second. Then we have our half and half. You can use half and half or heavy cream, whichever you prefer. And then you just want to scrape the sides just to get any excess lumpy potato mashed up. Go with a little bit of cream. Kind of loosen it up. And then you just want to taste it. Make sure it's not grainy. Because if it's grainy, it just means you need a little bit more cream. Potatoes should taste like a potato. Butter, and a little bit of the half and half, the cream. And then you have mashed potatoes. And there you go. You have mashed potatoes. And here I'll do a nice spoonful so you can see. I know it's kind of hard to.
So, Aaron, you're making this all look easy. Can you share too with the folks on the Zoom a little more insight into your story with how you got back into doing this?
Mm-hmm. So, I started to the first I got hired a RN nurse, and she kind of helped me because I had trouble tasting there for a while. So the RN nurse kind of helped me get, because I was a private chef, and so I was trying to get back to work. And so we did that at first to give her direction. Then I got a little bit better. So I hired a kind of a sous chef to help me out. She was amazing. And then eventually I was able to do it by myself. There's certain things I couldn't do. I can't stand for very long. And then once I realized, I started to realize that I couldn't do this for a job. I could do it for stuff like this. I couldn't do it for a job. That's when I started thinking about doing videos. And at first, I'm not going to lie, selfishly, I did them for me. I want to prove to myself that I could do things. And it kind of just became a way to kind of do stuff like this. And then I started seeing the reaction I was getting from other people, whether it was therapists or other people that had strokes or brain events or anything like that. I've done a bunch of brain injury groups, and I met so many amazing people. So I met Austin and Peter. And I don't know. And I met Michael from Believe, and I don't know. I just started having this. I just started really enjoying what I was doing. I still cook for 3 families on the side under the table to make a little extra money. I mean, it's not a lot, but it gives me a purpose, because I'm on disability. And if if y'all know, disability is not a lot of money. It's better than nothing, but it wasn't what I was used to making. But but yeah, that's how I got into this. And then I just kind of ran with it and I keep doing it. I haven't done a video in a while and I need to get back to it. I had someone reach out to me through my YouTube channel and said, please do more videos. So this is going to be kind of like my Kickstarter to get back into it. And then starting in January, I'm going to do it more regularly.
This is
So,
great. We got a comment, Aaron, that they wish you had smell-o-vision on your videos.
oh man, there's nothing. The best smell, I think, I love roasted garlic. I think when you roast a pepper, there's no better smell. And I enjoy it because, you know, when I'm cooking in my house, I can come back in my house and I smell the cooking. And if I've been cooking for a few days, it kind of goes away. And no, this cooking is just, for me, it was everything. I dropped out of high school and I struggled with what I was going to do with my life. And then I fell into the kitchen. I had a chef that liked me and wanted to teach me how to be a cook. And he's now William DeVray. He's a chef at East End Bistro here in Raleigh. And he's probably one of the most talented chefs I've ever worked for. And I went to see him when I was like this about a year ago with a friend of mine and then my mother for last Christmas. And it just dawned on me, you know, my whole life was changed because of my interaction with this one man. You know, 30 years ago, I made a decision to go back in the kitchen and become a cook. And here I am, you know, and even now I'm still trying to be around food as much as I can because once something gets in you, it doesn't matter what you do. Once your passion gets in you, it's in you. And I've been able to do this for 30 years and still kind of do it. I don't make money off of it. I do a little bit, but now it's more for enjoyment. You know, I made soup about a few weeks ago. I was like, man, I'm glad I can do this because I can just go to the store and pick something up and without effort, really, you know, just like this is kind of what I want to do. I know a lot of people put a lot of effort into cooking and they get frustrated, but what I try to tell people is I've been doing this for 30 years. I still make mistakes. So if you're doing something and you don't like it, how many times have you done that recipe? What do you not like about that recipe? Do it a few more times, you know. If you make something one time, you're probably not going to be good at it. It's probably not going to be good. Learn how to do it. Watch a video, watch something on TV, do a little bit more research if you're interested. If you don't, if you're not, I get it. There's some people that they care less about cooking, but not me. I enjoy it. So, all right, now we're going to make a vinaigrette. I'm going to do a balsamic vinaigrette because it's probably the most popular besides ranch, which is not a vinaigrette. So you want to go 3-to-1, oil to vinegar 2-to-1. So I'm going in, I don't know how much it is, probably about a quarter cup. To help
Keep
emulsify it,
those ratios again, Aaron, just so I'll type them in.
3-to-1. You want to do 3 parts oil, 1 part vinegar. Obviously, you're going to go in, you'll see what I do with the oil. And that ratio is good for anything. And you don't have to go to up to 3. We recommend up to 3 because once it starts to get, if it gets too thick, add water. If it's too thin, can continue to add oil. And also keep tasting it. If it's right where you want it to be, it's right where you want it to be. But I go in with Dijon mustard because it helps emulsify with the emulsification process. Because we've all taken science, oil and vinegar is not supposed to come together, but through the magic of emulsification, it does. And that's another thing people forget about cooking. Everyone's like, my nephew the other day, what are people going? Why do you need science? Nobody uses science. And I'm like, I cook. I use science every day. You know, you don't think of it as science, but it is. I mean, when you're cooking meat, you're slowly. I'm going in with honey right now. On this batch, probably about a tablespoon. But you're slowly drying out meat. Then I go in with a little bit of garlic powder. You can go in with fresh garlic. I'm using powder today because I don't have fresh garlic. And that's the other thing, you know, use what you have. If you don't have something, look up substitutes. So I'm going with a little bit of rosemary, about a teaspoon of dried rosemary. But yeah, if you don't have something, the beautiful thing that we have now is the internet. When I first started cooking, you didn't have these kind of things. You had to cook. You had to go to a bookstore, read books. You had to buy a book, magazines. You had to get a chef, and hopefully he would share some secrets with you. Now you can still do those same things, but you can just go on the internet and pull up 100 recipes of one thing, and oh, I like this one. Let's go with this one. Or if you have a trusted website, you can go to. So I'm going to blend this up, let that mix together, and then I'm going to go in with my oil. And you want to go in a slow, steady stream in the beginning. And if you don't have a Cuisinart, get one, because it really does make a difference. They're expensive, but I've had this one. I got this. I'm not married anymore. I got this 20 years ago for my wedding. So these things last a long time if you take care of them, like anything else. So you just go in like this. And then now we'll taste it. And you want to see the consistency, which that's about the consistency that I want. Now I'm going with a little bit of, where's my pepper? Sorry. I get a little turnaround sometimes, like everyone. Going with a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt. Just run this back. And I did this with Austin, so he knows how to make a vinaigrette. And he's a good cook. If you follow him on Facebook, he makes some really good stuff. So then now, and I'll go in a bowl so you can see it. And if you want to go thicker, you just add more oil. If you want to go thinner, that's fine. And some people, there you go. And if you don't have the time to make a vinaigrette, because I know everything I've done so far, you're like, it's easy. It is, and it isn't. If you're, if you can't make a vinaigrette, just use vinegar and oil and just do it in the salad, and you mix it in the salad, and it's fine. If it's separated, doesn't matter, shake it up, it'll be fine. But you see how it comes together. And that's the cool thing to me. I mean, that's why I like making vinaigrettes. It's science, because I remember as a kid, oil and vinegar doesn't mix. And like, well, actually it does, and for me, that just showed me that anything's possible. It's kind of like going through something like this. Yeah, I can't use my right hand, but all right, what does that really stop me from doing? I can't run anymore. I can't swim. But I can go to a pool. I can walk. I can meet people for dinner, for lunch. I'm able to drive. I'm able to still cook and do what I want to do. Is it different? Yeah. I have to be careful when I'm going into the oven. I have to watch, make sure that I don't burn myself. I do have some control, so that helps a lot too. But yeah. So that's it. Vinaigrette, mashed potatoes. Is there anything else that any questions that y'all have, or anything else you want to hear from me?
Yeah, we've been getting a couple questions. Um, well, first of all, people again think your food looks delicious and amazing. And what we were thinking is maybe if it's okay with you, we'll share the recipe in one of the NAA newsletters. Does that sound
Yeah,
good?
yeah.
Um,
I'll type it up and email it to you.
Perfect. So, how about easy recipes for days that people are feeling tired? What would you recommend?
Well, the one thing I like to do is I have a grill pan and I'll just grill chicken and then I'll saute some vegetables. And if I want potatoes, I'll just roast them in the oven. And you can even do that. You can just take a bunch of root vegetables, toss them together, roast them and broil them in the oven, and just grill the chicken in the grill pan. You don't even have to go on a grill. And there you have your protein. If you want to do a vinaigrette, you have your sauce. But if you do all this ahead of time, you, especially with a vinaigrette, that'll be good for, I mean, that's enough for me for about a week, the way I eat. So being smart and getting ahead of things, especially when you're like this, I know with aphasia and with some people with strokes, especially in the beginning, if not ongoing, you get tired very easily. I'd also recommend if you do get tired easily, bring in a stool in the kitchen. I'm sitting down right now. I take breaks, take your time. And when you're growing something, sit down. That was one thing Peter did. Peter Andrews, when he made the bread, then we just sat there and wait. We talked, and that's how I got to know him a lot. So it's very interactive if you have someone, if someone with you. If you're by yourself, listen to a podcast. That's what I do. Casseroles are really good. I know, but you got to be careful with that because it can be too heavy. Like make a lasagna, and you can get the oven ready pasta sheets, buy the tomato sauce, get already pre-cut mozzarella, ricotta, go in there. And if you want to do vegetables, you can go in raw if you cut them thin enough. If you're doing meat, all you got to do is brown the meat, mix it in with the sauce, and then and that's a really easy dish. It takes a minute to put together. The only thing there, be careful, make sure you can pull it out of the oven because, the extra weight. Because last year I did a Christmas party and I was being a little bit ambitious. So I did creme brulee and I didn't realize that creme brulee you have to put in a water bath. And I didn't really think about that. And there was water all over the floor. I didn't break anything, but there was a lot of water on the floor because I didn't think too far ahead. And that's one thing about this. I now think more about what I do than I did before. And I always kind of thought ahead and tried to plan, but now it's a different kind of plan. Before it was just planning what I was going to do. Now, not only do I have to plan what I got to do, I got to make sure that I can do it physically.
Yeah, wow. And I think, you made this point too about how cooking can inherently be a great social opportunity. And it sounds like this is a place where care partners and the person with the stroke or aphasia can work together. And not only are you doing that activity together, but it's giving you an opportunity to practice communication and connect.
Well, and my favorite thing has always been a dinner party. I firmly believe in the kitchen table. To me, it represents where everything happens and nothing happens because sometimes you're just eating food. I mean, when I was going through, my mom was here and she was taking care of me, and then it was just sustenance. That was my shelter life. I'd go from my bedroom to the living room to the kitchen table back to the bedroom. I did that for a few months, and I did a little bit more than that, but my life was very small for a while. And when you're like this, your life is really small, and then it gets a little bit bigger, and then it gets a little bit bigger. But having a dinner party, especially when you're like this, and because you can't cook like you used to, when you have a dinner party, you have multiple hands. And then you have all those people in the kitchen. And if they're friends of yours or family, people you love and care about, you're going to strike up a conversation. Whether you're on the bad side of politics right now and oh man, I can't believe that happened, or you're on the other side of it and you're like, yay. um, you know, the kitchen to me, it's always been the most important place in my life and my home. And I don't have as many dinner parties as I did in my 30s. I used to have dinner parties all the time. I'd invite my staff over for twice a year for staff parties. And, I have a grill, we have a fire pit, you know, we would do chop dinners with friends, dinner parties where everyone would do a dish. And it was a competition, but it was just an excuse to have a dinner party. It was all fun and we got to eat a bunch of different food. So if you like things like that, you can still do things like that. Don't feel limited. I mean, you are limited, but don't be limited in your mind. Um, because when you're like this, at least for me, I'm an outgoing person. And so I remember I thought I was about 5, 6 months in, and I thought I was depressed. So I reached out to my therapist, and she couldn't meet up with me. She just had her third kid. She's like, but she recommended someone. So I started meeting with this person, and she's like, "Well, what's wrong?" And I was like, "Well, I think I'm depressed." And she's like, "Well, okay, tell me what's going on." And so I told her, and she's like, "I don't think you're depressed, because you want to be around other people, you want to meet with other people." She's like, "I think you're really down, and deservedly so." And that's the one thing when you're like this. Yeah, it sucks. It fucking sucks. I'm sorry about my language. It's not fun, but I've met so many amazing people, and I already knew a lot of good people. But now I feel like a Michael Irwin, like you guys. I mean, to be honest, like an Austin, like a Peter. I've met so many more people that I would have never met if it hadn't have been for the situation that I'm in. And I did a podcast with this one lady, and she asked me, would you rather have what have happened to you or not? And I immediately said I would rather not, but because I did, everything about it has been as good as it can be. I had great doctors to get my brain surgery. I had great therapists. I had great care. I had great family. I had great friends that were there for me. I had a boss that kept me on the payroll for a year and a half. I didn't lose my house. I got on disability after a year and a half. So everything kind of outside of winning the actual lottery, it could have gone a lot worse. And so I embrace it. I still go and see my original care team. My speech therapist, she's the one that got me off my ass because I couldn't move. I had a patch on my eye. I'm pissing on myself. I can't, no one can understand me because my talking was really bad back then. And she goes, and there's about 3 or 4 weeks I don't remember. After my brain surgery, it was very spotty. But I do remember loosely going into her, one of her sessions, and she was like, um, is this how you want to be? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you're going to get better. Do you want to be? And she was blunt. She's like, you want to be in this shitty mood? And I was like, and I went back to who I was and a cowboy up and a chef. And so then my attitude, even all my therapists, they realized like 2 days later, they're like, oh my God, something's different. My PT thought I was going to go in a home. And I remember telling him when he told me that, it's like, oh, I'm going home, because, they kick you out of the hospital and you either go home or you go to a home. And I didn't want to go to a home. So you got to motivate yourself a little bit, but also I learned I was a very self care person before. Now I fully understand it takes a village because I could not have done this alone. There's just no way because everyone that was a part of my life and the new people that are in my life, I couldn't have done it without them. That was kind of off subject, but
No, it's super interesting, and there's so many questions we could ask. One thing that you and I had talked about that I'd love for you to share with the folks listening is how you advocated for yourself with your therapist to do really functional therapy, like specifically getting back to actually shopping and cooking in therapy. Do you have any advice for folks listening on this call, how to advocate for themselves and how to make therapy so personalized and functional?
well, just tell. I don't know about you, but my therapist, they're like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, well, "I want to do this, this, and this. I want my hand to work. I want this." So jokingly, I say every week to my therapist, like, "What do you want to do today?" It's like, "Well, make my hand work. That's what you're here for, right?" But no, just ask them. And if there's something you want to do, ask them to help you figure out what you can do. Mine was cooking. So when I was in the hospital, they started that pretty early. We went down to, because they always go to the apartment to kind of get you ready to leave the hospital just for functioning. I cooked a meal. I mean, and the people that I cooked it for 3 other staff, and they're like, "Oh my God," you know, they had a cooked meal, you know, and they still talk about it when I go in there. They have pictures of it. But no, if there's something you want to do, ask your therapist. Yeah, how can I do this? What can I do? There's this one woman that I met. Her name's Jenny Lacey. She had a stroke about the same, just a couple months after my event, and she talks about how when she first started to come through, she wanted to go to the steps because she had a second floor apartment, and she was like she wanted to do that, and they're like, "You're not ready for that." She's like, "That's what I want to do," and so they're like, all right. And now she has moved. She was on a ground floor. Now she's in a second floor apartment again. You know, she's kicking ass, and she's, but they can advocate for you and they have the knowledge to help you, but also you have to want it. There's things you have to want to do. So if there's something you want to get back to, don't think about what you can't do. Because I did for after a year and a couple months, my girlfriend broke up with me, and I moved back into my house, and I told my sister, I was like, because she moved into my house, I was able to keep my house. I was like, I'm going to travel. And so what I did is I went to Tarpon Springs, Florida to visit my cousin. I drove to prove to myself that I could drive to Florida. I split it up. I drove to Savannah. I did 5-hour shifts, because I can drive a lot farther now, but back then my foot with my brace starts to ache with the brace. But I drove to Florida just to see what I could do and hang out there. We did a bunch of things. We went to a baseball game, and now it's become a yearly thing. And I went back, and they could see, because it's hard to see your improvement day to day, but they hadn't seen me in a year, and I was much faster. I could take steps quicker. I wasn't as scared in crowds, and I'm still not. I'm not like going to run in any Olympics or anything, but it is a lot better. And then after that, I went to Vieques, which is an island off of Puerto Rico, and a chef friend of mine, old mentor, him and his wife opened up a restaurant there 17 years ago. So I went there, and I don't know if you've been to Vieques or if you've been to any island, a real island. There's not much there. And I'm just sitting there with my cane. They had a gate that had to push open, get out of the Jeep, close it again. And I proved to myself that I could do that. There's some things I couldn't do when I was there. I couldn't go to the bioluminescent bay. I couldn't see the black sand beaches because it was like you had to walk down a creek. And I was like, I wasn't quite ready for that. So we're going to figure it out next time I go. And then I went to Seattle, one of my best friends, for my birthday that year. I went there for like a week, and I got COVID, but I had a great time. And I had to learn. Their house has like 3 floors, and I had to walk up steps different ways, holding onto rails. But I was able to do it. And then I went to St. Kitts, another island, for a friend's 50th birthday. And then this year I did my first big city. I went to Toronto for my 50th, and I proved myself that there's like Toronto. I now know a big city, I can only handle 3 days. Eventually got to the point I've even told my friends, like, I can't walk any further. I can only Uber. So I now know my limits, what I can and can't do. But that's the thing when it comes to anything, it's whatever you want to do, but you have to want to do it. It's kind of like an old thing my therapist did when I was in my late 20s. Fake it till you make it. And so, just if you find something you want to do, figure it out, ask your therapist how to do it, because the one thing I've learned about therapists and people like you, they want nothing more than the best for you. And the best patients are the ones that want more. The ones that just come in and they're treated just the same. And not that they're treated any less, but the ones that want more, those are the ones they remember more. Those are the ones they hold on to. And those are the ones like, oh, okay. Like my therapist, they like me because they're like, holy shit, he actually does the homework. Because I would come back in, I'm like, I was trying to do this, and I think I'm getting it down, and I'm like, I'm walking, watch this when I walk, or watch this when I do this. And they're like, you're doing the homework. And that's the thing. You have to do it at home. You have to want it. You have to ask for it, because they can only do so much, because they can't jump into your bodies. And every therapist and everybody wants everything to work again for you. But
Can I
you have
ask
to
about
wonder.
Oh, go ahead.
Good. No, go ahead.
I was going to say we have a couple other questions about some of the tools too.
Yeah.
One person was asking about if you use a rocker knife. Is that a tool you have in the kitchen or find helpful?
I personally don't like them. I never have, and they work well for other people. So it's just a preference, I think. I've never liked them, um, but I do know people that use them and very helpful to them. But when it comes to stuff like that, it's very personal, and if it works for you, then use it. If it doesn't, don't use it.
So you use a regular knife. What
Yeah.
safety tips do you have both for you, but also thinking about care partners who want to start letting their loved one with aphasia cook but are worried about them hurting themselves? Any tips?
Um, well, just be careful and be slow, be cautious. Don't try to be too fast. Well, I can't cut like I normally do because I used to have two hands and put up. Um, I can't. I do use a mincer, so because I can't go small on the cut. So what I do is I have this. I should have showed this in the beginning. I have a little chopper, and let's see, and you just and so you use something like that to find because I can't do a fine dice anymore, but I can at least get it close enough. Use a cutting board with suction cups, or make sure your cutting board doesn't move. That's the biggest thing. But the thing is, you don't have a hand to worry about anymore, because so before you're worried about chopping your fingers off, at least in the beginning when you first start learning how to cut. But when you're cutting, make sure you have your cutting board can't move because that's usually how people hurt themselves. And make sure you have a good knife and it's sharp. I know most people are scared of sharp knives, but if you don't have a sharp knife, you're going to hurt yourself because it won't go all the way through, and it could move, it could cut into you or cut into something else, and
In one
that's
of your
something you got to be
videos,
careful of.
you showed the adaptive knife sharpener that you use. Is that something that
Oh
you have?
yeah, yeah. So this is another thing that I use. So it's you just wet the bottom and it suction cups to the ground, and
Very
you just
cool.
pull the knife through. And the funny thing is, I would have never used this in my old life. I used a whetstone, a Japanese whetstone. I went to, because I went to a core knife store in New York, and it's a Japanese knife store, and there's a little Japanese guy in there. He teaches you how to, in 15 minutes, they'll teach you how to use a whetstone. You just don't have that stuff here in North Carolina, or anywhere really. That's the only place I know of that has something like that. And it was so cool. And so, but I would never. But the thing is, I had a chef friend sharpen my knife, and I was like, man, how many is he always gonna be there for me? And that was the other thing for me. I started to look at this as a problem, like when I was a chef. Problem because when you're a chef, you learn how. Oh, we don't have this. Well, let's use this. Problem solving. I mean, that's the biggest thing. One of the best things I've been good at. I've always been good at problem solving, and this is what this was. So I started looking at this as a problem, not a detriment, but a problem. All right, how do I? What can I do without this being an issue? And so I started thinking through how I can do things. And so I ended up with these crimpers. Some of the stuff I already had, and I started looking for things. And plus, the one beautiful thing we have a lot of time. And if you just sit and watch TV, you're not really doing anything productive. But so I was trying to think how to do things, and that was the one thing that they taught me um, that helped. I remember when I was in the hospital and we went to Publix. I had a list of 11 things, and I pretty much got everything, but there's one more thing. And my therapist's like, well, what is it? And I'm like, well, it's on the list. Well, tell me. She's like, what is it? And I'm like, that's why you have a list. And she was like, you need to remember. And we sat there and I was like, well, you have a list. So you don't have to remember. And then finally I was like, lemons. And she's like, that's right. and and that was something, but it was now because I'm 50 and I had a brain event, so I don't know which is which. I can't remember something sometimes. I take notes all the time in my phone, or in my phone. And like when I'm shopping, I pull out my list and I mark it off. And and when you're shopping, the cool thing about shopping, you have a card there, so you can actually walk a good distance. So the A, it's exercise. B is therapeutic because you're using your brain, you're using your knowledge. I can't see 100%, but I can see well enough to drive. So reading is still kind of difficult for me, so that helps as well.
Mhm. Someone is asking about the crimper. I don't know if you have what you would need to demonstrate that, but they were wondering, they'd love
So
to see
you
you use
put
it.
you put the dough in here, a round piece of dough, then you put the filling, and then you just close it, and it closes the dumpling or empanada, and you open it back up, and then you can either fry it, bake it in the oven, pan sear it, put it in your air fryer.
And then someone's asking, how do you use the stove and the oven without hurting yourself? So again, about safety in the kitchen. Any tips?
Um, just be careful. Be careful. That's always been something you got to be careful about. Make sure, especially if you're stirring stuff. I do have my therapist gave me this. I don't use it um because they're trying to get me to use my right hand more. And you can slide this over spoons and stuff, and it can use it to help grip. You can also make sure you sometimes wedge another pot up to something so you can stir it with the one hand. Because I remember the first time I did a pot with a handle and it just spun around and around and around. And then eventually it hit the back wall and it stopped. So what I do is I keep a cast iron pan on the stove, and I ain't worried about the heat because it's going to absorb heat. Um, and I just wedge it. And then also I have an air fryer. That's really good to work with. I have a rice cooker. That's another good thing to use. Simple. You can put a lot of stuff in it. It's basically a steamer. So there's a lot you can do with that. I think I have a video where I use this where I make empanadas. So I think I do have a video. So I've done like 40. So it's not like it's a lot, but I think there is a video where the person that was asking about that, look at that. And if not, I'll do another one here coming up in January. But
Great.
yeah, I mean, the thing is like, like as I, the, as I cook for people, I've gotten better
Mhm.
because like the potatoes, I was cooking for these people. I was trying to do things really simple. So I was making mashed potatoes with baby Yukons, and they're like, "Can we have potatoes without skin?" And I had to think about it. And then I was like, "Well, I can put the potato on that cutting board, and then I think I can peel it." And I was able to do it. It takes time, and I can't get everything. I mean, whatever. I'm not perfect at it.
I love
Peeling.
that creativity. We actually had another question. Did you lose any creativity when it came back to being in the kitchen? I find that I have and eat a lot of the same things. One of my friends helped me create a note in my phone when all I could remember to make was oatmeal and avocado toast.
Um, Not really. Well, in a way, the thing is when you're in a restaurant setting, you have to be up with the times. You're always doing what's innovative, what's new, what's fresh. When you're at home, it's a little bit different. You're cooking what you like to eat, and so I try to be as creative as I can. I got the air fryer to just play around with it because I figure it'd be less mess for me to clean up. Because that's one thing when you're like this, cleaning it up is a little bit harder. I still hand wash a lot of stuff. But if I've been cooking, I might not do it till the next day because I'm tired. Um, but Not really. I go out to eat a lot more. I started um, when I first started to really embrace where I was at. I like to go out to eat by myself, and so I would just go out to eat, and a cocktail with an appetizer. Then I have a glass of wine with my entree. Then I'd have an after dinner drink with my dessert. And I try to go to all these different places. My mom, for her 75th birthday, we went to see David Sedaris, and then we went to this new restaurant called Madre in Raleigh and had such a good time, you know. And they had our favorite dish was this charred cabbage dish, and we had tuna crudo. We had potato bravas, the Spanish potatoes with the aioli. We had octopus. We had oysters. We had scallops. So I still like to eat. Now I eat it more than I cook it.
And it sounds like maybe for someone who's having trouble with creativity, going out to eat is a great way to remind yourself or get ideas of things you might like to eat and cook.
Definitely. And I mean, I watch shows on TV, like watching a show. My favorite show. I don't like cooking shows, but I like travel shows. That's why I like No Reservations. So watch any old school No Reservations with Anthony Bourdain. He had the best job ever. I idolize him because he committed suicide. I'm still wrestling with that on my own. That happened right before my event. But Everybody Feed Phil on Netflix. He's Phil Rosenthal, one of the creators of the Everybody Loves Raymond, and he's just this goofy Jewish writer. And the way he's so different than Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain was very cool. And, hey, you got to eat like this. And Phil is like, "Oh my God, this is good. Have you tried this? Come here, come here, come here." And the first few seasons were really good because at the end of it, he would meet with his parents who still lived in New York, and so they would do things. And then his mom passed away, and then his dad would tell a joke. And now that his dad passed away, he invites friends on, and then they tell a joke. And so it's funny, and they go to a bunch of different places. And for me, food is life. No, they say football is life. Food is life for me. Um, I love to eat. I love to cook. When I planned my vacation, the reason I went to Toronto, I heard it was a foodie city. I was like, "Why Toronto?" I was like, "Well, I heard it was a foodie city." I'm like, "Okay, that's weird." And I'm like, "Nope."
How
Yeah.
about we got a question if you have any tips or food or meal ideas for people with dementia. So we may have people on the call with primary progressive aphasia who need to eat with their fingers. Do you have any ideas of some good meals that are would be finger food?
Ethiopian. A lot of Middle Eastern food, a lot of Indian food, things you can use pita and bread with, and stuff like that. Um, I would think I would think that would be very easy to do. Look up a lot of Indian dishes, a lot of stuff that you can just because most ethnic food like that originally was like Ethiopian's the best because they don't have silverware. Sushi is also really good because you eat with your hands. And
How would you
there's
roll up a sushi roll one-handed? Have you tried it?
I was talking about eating. No, I have not. I have not. I was just talking about eating.
Yeah, I'm
But
curious
cooking,
if that's something too. Like,
I think you could do it. It would be it might not be as tight as before,
mhm.
but that's something. Yeah, I haven't thought about that one yet.
Yeah, no, but
But
you're right. That'd be great one hand
but
or
yeah,
your
or
finger.
make a hummus dish. Make food that is like a casserole in a way, but loose enough that you can take bread or a pita or some sort of thing and just kind of scoop it up into your mouth. That way you can still eat hot food or warm food because you don't want to just eat, I don't know. I don't know enough about that kind of dementia and stuff like that, but I would think simple foods you can use bread with. Um, like I would say Middle Eastern and Indian, I'd start there and just kind of work your way back because you got a lot of lentils, you got a lot of chickpeas, a lot of
Mhm.
stuff you can do with that.
Sounds really healthy too.
And well, I mean, billions of people, come on. And Chinese food, you can make a lot of Chinese food, and I mean, and just and I'm pretty sure I had it. I had because my depth perception was not very good, so I had this spoon. It was like a spork, but it was like straight and then it shot this way, and
Mhm.
it helped me eat a little bit better because I still dropped a lot of food because I couldn't really make that in the beginning, the first few weeks. I couldn't really make that.
Yeah.
Eating was very interesting back then.
And you mentioned a lot of different adaptive tools. Did you adapt your kitchen space in any way?
No, I mean, when I first came back, they cut off because I had a wheelchair, so they cut room for me to get through doors and stuff like that, made that more accessible, but not really. My stove, I have the burner knobs in the front. I did that before this happened to me because I don't understand. I've never understood why they have it behind because if you're burning yourself, you have to reach through whatever you're burning to turn it off. And so I believe in having everything in the front. I don't understand because that's how you do it in the kitchen. And I don't know how that got started. But no, not really. I mean, it depends on what if you can't walk like Peter, even Peter. I mean, he he can't use his I forget, I think it's his left hand, and he is primarily wheelchair. He can get up and stand and do some stuff. The only thing he did different was he kept a chair in the kitchen so he could take a break. And that's the only thing I would recommend is, if you have a big enough kitchen, it doesn't even matter. Put a stool or something in the middle of the kitchen that you can sit on, and that way you can rest because the biggest problem is fatigue. It depends on what you're trying to do, but no, I have not really adapted my kitchen. I've made it work for me.
You sure have. That's great. Well, I'm looking at the time and it's 7:58, so it's probably about time to wrap up. We mentioned that you're on YouTube. Erin, before I wrap us up, do you want to share where people can find your videos and other resources on YouTube or social media?
If you look up Single Handed Chef, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I have a TikTok account. And Facebook, I have Aaron Vaughn and Single Handed Chef. Instagram is Single Handed Chef. YouTube is the Single Handed Chef. Just like in the bio you had, just look up Single Handed Chef, and you should be able to find me. Um, you've seen my picture now, so you know what I look like. And ask you guys where to find it. Austin knows,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, great. And
yeah,
we'll share in the NAA newsletter. We always record these webinars and they will be up on the NAA's YouTube channel soon. So great.
yeah, and
Excellent.
then share it to me, and I'll put it on my channel as well.
Perfect. We'll get it shared around. So thank you so much for being our expert tonight. It was a pleasure to have you and get to see a cooking show and hear about your experiences and suggestions. For more information about the National Aphasia Association and to find educational materials, resources, providers, supports in your area, you can visit us at aphasia.org. And we have a lot of virtual events coming up. So if you go to aphasia.org and click on Find Support and then Online Events, that will bring you to our online events calendar. I'm sure that's how many of you got to tonight's event, but we have lots going on tomorrow. There's 3 different things happening, so definitely check that out. If you have any questions about Ask the Expert, about our upcoming events, anything related to aphasia, please email us at answers@aphasia.org. So thank you.
And for,
Oh, go
and for
ahead.
me, send a message. Hit me up on social media. Hit me up through YouTube. I'll respond. I may not respond immediately, but I'll try to respond as quick as I can. So, I this is my way of giving back to all the people that helped me. Like I said, I met so many amazing people, and I'm very happy that if I can help at least one person, it means a lot to me.
Well, thank you so much. I think you've certainly helped lots of people by sharing with us in this Ask the Expert tonight. So thanks again, Erin. Thanks to everybody who took the time to join us for this. And we will see you soon. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you too. I'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.